This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening. You're watching SMNI. This is Business and Politics. I'm your host, Bingcang. Our guest tonight is Engineer Joshua Bingcang, who was recently appointed as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Clark International Airport Corporation, or SIAC. Before that, he was Senior Vice President of the Bases Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA, where he took on a senior role in the Clark Airport expansion. That project was considered the fastest infrastructure project implemented under the Duterte administration's Build, Build, Build program. Given his background, our discussion will center on Clark. Airports are not only gateways into the country for tourists, balikbayans, and foreign investors. They also offer the first and last impressions of nearly every country visited by people. We hope to also ask Mr. Bingcang about developments in Clark, the former U.S. military base that is being transformed into a central business district and government hub. Those developments are part of the effort to position the Philippines as a gateway to the region. We will begin with, how do we transform Clark Airport into the premier Philippine gateway to Southeast Asia? Sir Jake? Engineer Bingcang, should say President Bingcang, welcome to Business and Politics. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, Dante, for inviting me today.
Yes, before we start, I should say that maybe for disclosure to our audience that we are working together because, like you, I was also appointed as a director of the Clark International Airport Corporation, and that's how we,
to you, to us,
that's how we met. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations to us.
So before we get into the airport itself, maybe it's useful to learn or understand the role of the Clark International Airport Corporation, because the airport also has LIPAD. This is the Luzon International Premier Airport Development Corporation, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can begin there. What is the role of SIAC? What is the role of LIPAD? Mm. And then, of course, there are other agencies involved. There's the BCDA, the CDC, and of course the Department of Tourism. Let's begin with the airport itself, SIAC and LIPAD.
All right, thank you. So for the longest time, my personal take on this Clark Airport as the center of gravity, or it's the crown jewel of the Clark area. No?
Okay.
These are not the golf courses, the duty frees, but it's really the airport. So all the potential for growth by these businesses around the airport emanates from the growth of the airport. Okay. For the longest time, Clark International Airport Corporation is the one directly managing the operations and maintenance of the Clark International Airport, until in 2017, when the government saw it fit to implement the master plan. There's already a master plan for Clark International Airport approved in 2013 under the Aquino administration. Okay. So in 2017, because at that time there were so many businesses interested to participate in PPP, they see the Clark International Airport operations and maintenance as a perfect vehicle for implementing a PPP partnership with the private sector. So at that time, the government entrusted the privatization of the Clark International Airport to BCDA, the Bases Conversion and Development Authority, owing to its experience in PPP projects like the Bonifacio Global City, the Subic Tarlac Expressway. So during that time, the Duterte administration issued Executive Order 14, transferring back the Clark International Corporation from an attached agency of DOTR to a 100% subsidiary of BCDA. Then moving forward, BCDA formulated the terms of reference for the privatization of the Clark International Airport, and we got the World Bank IFC, the International Finance Corporation, as our transaction advisor. So moving forward, we were able to successfully bid out the privatization, which was won by LIPAD, the Luzon International Private Airport Development. One of their major members is Changi International Airport.
Singapore.
Yes. So we know how Singapore Airport is being admired worldwide as one of the best managed airports in the world.
Right.
So we required as the airport operator not to be just a service operator of the consortium, but an equity investor. So Changi put some investment, around 15%, in the consortium to make sure that they will stay for the longest time in the operations, and they will put their name to make sure that the service quality levels is always at world-class level.
Right.
And so in 2019, we officially turned over the privatization or the operations and maintenance to LIPAD.
Okay.
But so BCDA is looking into the commercial arrangement. However, being the DOTR, being the national agency mandated to make sure all airports are coordinated nationwide, so they still have regulatory supervision, and they have supervision over the airports, including Clark Airport.
Okay.
So in last year, under this administration, the government wants to make sure that LIPAD will perform its tasks and as a public entity or as a public service facility.
Okay.
So they entrusted SIAC now to be the one to oversee, to make sure that the operations of the airport is always in the interest of the public. So we see now BCDA looking at the commercial side, SIAC being an attached agency of DOTR, and is being tasked by the national government to perform the oversight of these functions by LIPAD to be always in the interest of the public. So we all play different roles here to make sure that the Clark International Airport will be a major and the best managed airport in the country.
Right. What is the role now of DOTR? DOTR chairs, of course, the SIAC Corporation, right?
Yes.
So
under the executive order issued in 2017, the chairman of the board of SIAC is the secretary of the transportation.
I see.
The other members are the secretary of tourism, BCDA, CAAP.
Yeah.
But given that the Secretary of Transportation is now the chairman of the SIAC board, so we see a strong and closer link between the national government through DOTR in supervising the operation of Clark International Airport under a private entity. So the government wants to make sure that the private sector always perform its tasks as mandated under the agreement signed with the government.
I noticed, from your previous speeches when you were still with BCDA, one of the thrusts was really PPP, public-private partnership. And recently there were discussions that Manila International or NAIA would probably have maybe some counterpart of LIPAD to maybe help it manage it better. It seems to be working well in Clark. Am I correct? Because you made money last year, right? Something like 30-something% from the previous year. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Of course, the pandemic happened, so globally all airports were impacted negatively with the
pandemic. But that was a remarkable bounce back.
But starting last year and until the first quarter of this year, we were growing now in leaps and bounds, more than 100%.
Okay.
So we see the return of the revenge travel by the public, and then the businesses. So this year, in fact, in close coordination with LIPAD, they adjusted several times their growth projections. So from less than 2 million, now they're projecting more than less than 3 million. So we're inching back before pre-pandemic levels.
Okay.
So if this trend will continue, we see that in the next 3 or 4 years, we need to build another terminal in Clark International Airport because the capacity of the existing terminal is only 8 million.
Okay.
So we need to plan, SIAC, DOTR, and BCD, we need to plan for the next terminal because that is outside of the jurisdiction of LIPAD.
Okay. So that will be under SIAC now to undertake. And I think if I remember correctly, you were trying to describe the Clark Airport as it is right now. You were comparing it to, I think, Terminal 3.
Yes.
It's about the same size, I think, as you said.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So if we go by the numbers, no.
Right.
First, in terms of land area, the NAIA is only around 600 hectares.
Okay.
While SIAC area, the Clark Airport area, has more than 2,300 hectares. So that's like 4 times the size of NAIA. So you can see the room, the potential for expansion.
Right.
And NAIA can only, well, it's true, NAIA has 2 runways, but they are not parallel. They cannot accommodate simultaneous takeoff and
parallel landings and takeoff.
Yes. Like we see abroad.
Yeah.
But in Clark, it has room for 3 runways, parallel runways. And it can accommodate more than up to 80 million. NAIA has seen its limit up to 40 million only, but double that is the Clark Airport capacity. And the existing terminal, you're correct, is more than 100,000 square meters. NAIA 1 is only 40,000+ square meter. NAIA 2 is 60,000. Mactan is 60,000. NAIA 3 is more than 100,000. So we're like the size of Terminal 3 of NAIA.
Now, what's the advantage of having the Department of Transportation involved there? Because obviously we're seeing multiple airport developments, right, around Metro Manila. But of course, unlike them, Clark is up and running. But of course, we're hearing about the airport project in Bulacan, the possible renovation of Sangli. We have, of course, the existing NAIA. Does having DOTR there mean that there's a sort of like a rationalization of what role each of these airports will play in the future? Is that would that be a correct way to read it?
Yes, for me, the way I see it, it's really important to have DOTR on board on the Clark Airport development. First, before talking about the other airports.
Right.
Not just the airport operation itself that they are very much interested or very much closely monitoring, but also the infrastructure support around it. The Manila Clark Railway, yes, the Manila. They said Clark is very far; it's more than 100 kilometers. Probably true, but with some upgrades on infrastructures like the Skyway, now it's easier to go there, less than 2 hours. But when the Manila Clark Railway will be completed in the next 3 years, it will have a station right in front of the terminal. So you don't need to bring cars to go to the airport. You just get off the train and go directly to the airport. And it will have a dedicated airport service, meaning from Manila to Clark, you will be able to go between these 2 distances in less than 1 hour. I think that's the internationally threshold for an airport to be away from the city, like Narita and Tokyo. So that's one. DOTR is really supporting the infrastructure need of Clark Airport.
Right.
Second, yes, we see that there should be, on Luzon Island, there should be more than 1 airport because there are more than 60 million people on Luzon Island, and we cannot just have 1 airport. And it's unfair or difficult for people from Batangas, Quezon, or Laguna to go to Clark because it's very far. So we need at least, for me, we need at least 2 airports. And we see these airports to have different catchment areas.
I see.
So for Clark, we see Northern Luzon, the Ilocos region, Cagayan Valley, and Central Luzon, where a big part of the OFW population reside. So there's really a huge market for the Clark International Airport.
My friends from Quezon City would say to me that it's faster now to go to Clark than it is to traverse the metropolitan area and go to NAIA.
And there's certainty that you will reach your destination on time. Unlike in Manila, you're still worrying whether you
traffic.
will be. Yes.
Well, that's very interesting. We'll just have to take a quick break. We're talking to the President and CEO of Clark International Corporation, Mr. Jake Bingcang. We'll be right back.
Problema nyo, itawag kay Panelo. Ikaw ba'y may suliranin na may kinalaman sa mga ahensya ng ating pamahalaan? Inihahandog ng SMNI ang programang makakapiling ninyo sa araw-araw na maaring ninyong maging daingan. Tampok ang dating Chief Legal Counsel ng nakaraang Pangulo, ang veteranong abogado na si Attorney Salvador Sal Panelo.
with bishops.
Tulong at payo tagapamagitan sa ating mga lingkod bayan. Problema nyo, itawag kay Panelo. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 9 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga. Dito lamang sa SMNI. Ang totoong boses ng bayan.
Statecraft is the art of managing the affairs of the state. Because of this, successful nation building depends on the effective use of this art. My name is Sas Rogando Sasot, and this is Statecraft.
Tama! Tumpak! Ganda ng programa, talagang makatutulong.
Mali, hindi naman lahat afford yan eh.
Set up to. Demolition job. I stand with Juan de la Cruz.
NPA yan for sure. Dapat nang mahuli. #Justice.
Tutol ako dahil pahirap lang ito sa mga low-income bracket.
Pabor! Panahon na para ma-improve iyong agri natin.
Dapat mag-igpit ang seguridad. Makita, saka alam mo kasi mayroong mga medical studies pala siya sa tao. Kaya naman,
Mr. Bingcang or Jake, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
You're talking about the benefit of having DOTR as
Yeah.
part of the board, and you were making the point that we're looking at connecting the airport through different parts of the cities through these different means of transportation, rail being one of them. When can we see that? What is the status of that project now? Because that's fairly new, right? It's just started, I think, at the tail end of the Duterte administration,
Yes,
and now being continued by the Marcos administration.
Correct. So the good thing about these projects, we're past the planning stage. We are at the implementation stage.
Okay.
Most of the contract packages
For
were already
implementation.
awarded.
Yeah.
In fact, on the recent website of DOTR, the package one of this Manila-Clark Rail, which is from Manila to Malolos, is more than 60%.
Okay.
And then the Malolos to Clark Airport is almost 50%.
Okay.
So, and in our recent discussion with the OTR under the rail sector headed by Secretary Yusek Chavez, is that 2025 is their, in the next 2 years, that's their target completion.
2025. That's pretty soon.
It's
Okay.
pretty soon. So, and in the overall railway plan of the government, they plan to extend this all the way to the north.
Okay.
So they will be bringing more passengers to
I
Clark
see.
Airport via this railway project.
I see. Now, in the meantime, I think we were talking about this before, that there are also point-to-point buses that are already operating. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there are two major buses right now operating point-to-point services for passengers in Metro Manila to bring them directly to the airport. So they have positioned themselves in strategic areas like in Cubao, Trinoma, Pasay, and in NAIA 3. So because if there are international flights in Clark and there are domestic connection flights in Manila, so in 1 hour or so, they can be transported to Metro Manila. So, and they're expanding there in terms of number of buses. In fact, the Genesis group is intention to put up a parking depot near the airport, which is under SIA plan, to make sure that they can accommodate more buses because the demand continues to grow as we speak.
That's very interesting. Now, can I circle back a bit to Lipad, because you were saying that one of the partners of that consortium group is Changi Airport. Was that intentional? Maybe because Singapore is getting a lot of attention for its airport. Besides just being a gateway, it's become in itself a tourist attraction in Singapore. Is that the vision also for Clark?
Yes. In fact, if you would anyone who would visit the Clark Airport, and we really make it sure that even non-passengers can go inside the facility and marvel at the infrastructure and architectural wonder and the design of the facility. We want to make sure that they can have a sense of ownership of the facilities. So, in the terms of reference, when we did bidding for the privatization, we made sure that only the top 20 of the airport operators abroad will be able to participate and operate the airport. And the likes of Singapore, Zurich, who else participated at that time?
Quite a few international
companies. KL, Kuala Lumpur. So, but it's Changi who won. So because they gave the best prize. So with Changi on board, we are pretty much sure that the airport experience that Filipinos do enjoy in Singapore can be replicated and be experienced the same in Clark Airport.
And I think it's also helpful that you were there before under a different role, but now you're president of SIAC. So there's a sense of continuity. We don't have to start from scratch and review what Lipad is trying to do, right? I mean, is that helpful?
Yes, I consider the Clark Airport as my baby among my projects now. I was involved with BGC during the late 90s. The 2000, the Subic-Clark Tarlac Expressway. But for me, the Clark Airport, I was part of the planning, procurement, design.
You saw it from groundbreaking to
Yes.
What are the opportunities in the airport now? Because as I understand it, there's still. Am I correct? I mean, opportunities for concessionaires, from other partners, private sector partners. Can you talk about that? What are some of those if people are interested in maybe looking at business opportunities at the airport? What's available?
All right. For the but first though, we would like to give appreciation also and acknowledge the effort of Lipad in bringing in more flights now. Because starting this month, April, Cebu Pacific will be bringing a lot of their flights to Clark. More than, I guess, 22 destinations, 14 local destinations like Cagayan de Oro, General Santos, Palawan, and 8 international flights like Vietnam, Bangkok, and in Japan. So if we bring in more passengers inside Clark, so it creates more opportunities to the areas around the airport.
Right.
And so as I told the people in Clark when we had our first meeting with them, we have to make sure that our lands around the airport, because the first thing that the businesses will see when they get out of the airport are SIAC lands.
Right.
So these are the most prime properties right now inside Clark. So we have to make sure that they are properly prepared in terms of development, utilities, and these are open for opportunities for mixed use, logistics, warehousing, and even tourism-related businesses.
I see.
Yes.
And going back to Lipad, you're saying how it attracted new airlines, additional airlines to fly to Clark. There have been many others who've been doing business there for a long time. Emirates, I think, has been flying there for 6 or 7 years.
7 years, Emirates, Qatar. And recently, less than a week ago, we were, or 2 weeks ago, we were able to participate in the launching of EVA Air. They said the president said
Taiwan.
The way you say it is EVA Air, not EVA Air.
Sorry, that's a Filipino.
Yes, but we're used to it.
Yeah.
So with that flight from Taiwan, it's a good connection flight for the Pacific side, which is the west coast of America. In fact, when the maiden flight arrived from Taiwan to Clark, most of the passengers are OFWs and retirees, balikbayans from US.
Interesting.
So it's a good now connecting flight for the US. And by June, they will bring another legacy carrier from Korea. So Asiana Airlines will come back. so another connectivity for Europe or America.
The question I have about that is that the responsibility of Lipad? Is that or the responsibility of SIAC to talk to these airlines and convince them to fly to Clark, or is it a joint responsibility along with maybe the DOTR?
Yeah, it's a joint responsibility.
Okay.
Because Clark has designated flights under the government rules. So, but in order to expand, they need the government. These are the air talks.
The air agreements, yeah.
And Lipad cannot sit on the table to discuss this with other governments.
These are government to government.
It's a government to government.
Treaties, yeah.
So our discussion with Lipad and the OTR is to have SIAC to be the one representing the Clark requirements for additional flights. So in the next air talks, we see SIAC participating actively in bringing more flights from other countries towards Clark. And of course, it's Lipad who will benefit on this discussion.
Is it more advantageous for airports to cater to long-haul flights or to short-haul flights? Which one of those routes is more advantageous to airports? Where do you make the more money? I mean, and the question there is, I guess the question is, when do we see the connections to direct connections to North America, I guess to Europe? I mean, do we start seeing that in the future?
Yeah. The good thing about this, before in the master plan, the 2013 master plan, Clark Airport's really just a how do you call it, a low-cost airport terminal.
Right, that's why you see Scoot.
The Air Asia, the local the areas, the two local carriers. But in the updated master plan that we implement, where Lipad is managing now, it's a mix.
Okay.
It's a mix of this legacy and budget airlines. That's why the facility has a how do you call it, a connection, no? So from international, you can directly connect to domestic. You don't need to go out of the airport.
Right.
Okay. And right now the passenger mix is around 80% international and 20% domestic. So right now we can say that most of the businesses are derived from international operation. But we need to strengthen the domestic, because as you strengthen domestic routes, it will give now opportunities for tourists to use Clark to go to the beaches of Palawan, Boracay, because we don't see them just stopping in Clark.
Okay.
We see them exploring other good destinations around the country.
So Clark's the entry point to all of the country.
Right, the hub.
All right, we'll be right back with Engineer Bingcang of the Clark International Corporation. We'll be right back. This is Business and Politics.
Did you know that water is the only drink that can quench your thirst? Drink Galilee Purified Drinking Water. Every bottle undergoes advanced scientific process to ensure a safe, clean, and pure bottle. So what are you waiting for? Drink Galilee Drinking Water. Every bottle is a labor of love. For delivery, contact Galilee Purified Drinking Water at 0956-658-4195 or 0998-466-0202 or 8572-1869.
The healthy way to lose weight. Edmark's Power 4 Slimming Program. Step 1. Detoxify with Edmark Shake Off in pandan and lemon flavor. Fast, effective colon cleansing. See result after 6 hours. Step 2. Burn fat and nourish with Edmark's Meal Replacement Therapy. Organic formulation with low calorie, balanced nutrition, aids in losing weight and burns fat. Step 3. Balance and cleanse with Edmark's Splena Liquid Chlorophyll. Purifies the blood and balances pH. Step 4. Rejuvenate with Edmark's Ginseng Coffee. Energy Booster lowers blood pressure and memory enhancer. And Red Yeast Coffee. Cholesterol Buster. anti-aging, and prevents heart disease. Edmark Pasay franchise, located at Empire Center, ground floor, EDSA Extension, Pasay City. For inquiries, contact Miss Bing at 0995-480-1026.
Stay with Edmark. Feel good now.
Welcome back to Business and Politics. Sir Jake, there are a lot of exciting plans in Clark, but of course, as we know from the news, running airports is never an easy task. We talked about the other entities that you deal with, but not many people realize that you also deal with immigration and customs, and if there are problems with them, the unfortunate thing is you're blamed. I mean, the airport management is blamed. How do you coordinate with these other agencies? And of course, we've been seeing some problems in NAIA with this, but through no fault of the airport management, it's really these other agencies that are problematic, that are giving airport a negative image.
Yes. In the design of the new terminal, we made sure that the space requirements of these government agencies like immigration, customs, transport security, and then the quarantine will be sufficiently be met and provided. So we consulted with them. So we established a good relationship with them during the design.
So it's built in from the beginning.
So what do you want? How much space? There will have expansion. So they have like a sense of ownership in the design itself. And we also upgraded some of their equipment, like the customs. We bought screeners, expensive ones, like you don't, and you don't, like there's an automatic screener there that you don't need to get a tray, but the tray will just pop out and you can just put your things. So we really invested on upgrading the requirements of this government agency, because if they themselves will be the one who will purchase or procure this, it will take time, or probably the budget will be a constraint.
And you're doing something different there from what I understand. In the NAIA, there's a security check, right, when you enter the building. But you were saying earlier, I think when we were talking, that in Clark, the people accompanying the passenger can go into, I guess, as far as the check-in gate. Is that right?
Because that's the experience that we normally have when we travel abroad. If you observe airports abroad, like Singapore, Narita, there's no security screener at the entrance, because first it will slow down you from going to the check-in counters, but also it's like a kind of inconvenience on the part of the passenger. So it's Changi who insisted that passengers should be able to experience that as well in Clark. And we coordinated with the national government, with the OTR and all its attached agencies, the transport security, to make sure that even though that layer of security will be removed, but the requirements still international will be met. So because the target of Changi is to make sure that in less than 35 minutes
you're through.
The way you get off your car, enter the terminal, until your boarding gate is only 35 minutes or less.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's the threshold that the Changi insisted to make sure that in the O&M of the airport is at par with the best airports abroad.
So passenger convenience is important there.
Yes.
But what about cost? Does Clark offer a system where it would be cheaper for them to fly out of Clark than to fly out of Manila, because in a sense you're also competing with other airports in there. Is there such a possibility, you think?
Yes. No. There's this called the economic benefits, in terms of savings on time, savings on
opportunity cost,
the opportunity cost. So that's where we see the potential of Clark. Even passengers can experience that.
But do you think because of the automation and all of the systems that you put in place, that it's cheaper for airlines to operate there, and then maybe they can transfer some of that savings to the passengers? Is that something you're looking at?
Yes. Like we provided how do you call it, those automatic kiosk where you don't need an agent or a receptionist from the airline to process your ticket. So that alone will help save you on salaries of workers. And even in the design, you can see the small component of the design of the terminal, like when you bring up your you put your luggage in the, how do you call it?
In the conveyor.
In the conveyor, no? In the other airport, like here, you have to leave it high. But there, you can just slide it. So it's a convenience on the passengers, and it's also to speed up the processing time.
So you don't need all those porters standing up on the conveyor belt.
Yes. We made sure those kind of experiences that are present abroad will also be present in Clark Airport.
So world class, very interesting. So going back to the question earlier, so these are all conveniences for the passengers. You said that you're also interested in making sure the facilities in the areas around it are developed. Now, what are the business and economic opportunities for people who want to do business with Clark? Are there any? I mean, or is that the responsibility of Lipad or BCDA or what can they discuss with you?
For aero-related businesses like MROs or FBOs. So that's Lipad because it's on the air side. But on the land side, that's where SIAC.
If they want to set up like a warehouse facility to connect their, like FedEx, for example, do they talk to you? Do they talk to Lipad, or do they talk to BCDA, or who do they talk to?
The FedEx right now, since they came back last year, the area that they're occupying is SIAC land. So for the land side, the opportunity that this airport operation creates is on the SIAC land. So we have, that's why I asked the management of SIAC to give me an inventory of all the available lands, because we will market this now to businesses abroad, to aviation related, to like the FedEx, UPS, DHL type, and even the logistics like Alibaba, the Amazon group. So it's very
that's your market.
So it's very efficient for them to put businesses around the airport because it's very close to that.
And I noticed during our discussions that there are also plans, and this may not be new because we're talking about the growth corridor that involves Clark and Subic. There are plans, as I understand it, for a cargo connection from Subic to Clark. What's the big vision there for that growth corridor?
So we really see the natural how to say, the national ban or connection between Subic and Clark, because Clark is more on the airport operation and Subic is on the seaport. And there's the one which the expressway that BCDA built. So any businesses that in Subic that needs immediate flying out the equipment or goods or services, they can already use the Clark Airport. On the vice versa, for Clark businesses like manufacturing, they can use the seaport, so via the expressway. So, but for the airport, we see this opportunity as always. It's more of the land around it can create businesses not just beneficial for the Clark area, but for the entire the country.
So, what are the challenges? Because we have a new government that's not 1 year old, at the moment. You have all of these things. What are the challenges facing you, and maybe what should the Marcos government look at to help Clark realize its vision?
Of course, the pandemic happened, so
you're still recovering.
So it created a strain on the national government's ability to fund big projects. So the good thing, the national government has already considered PPP as one of the thrust or mode of implementing big ticket projects. Because we see the next big thing that we need to build in the Clark Airport area is the second runway. But it is being occupied right now by the Air Force facility, so we need to relocate them first. So under the agreement with the Air Force, we need to fund their relocation requirements. So their housing.
Can't they just fly away?
We hope so, if that happen, of course. But once the Air Force will leave the airport facility, this will give an area of very prime 300 hectares of prime land for development, the size of Bonifacio Global City, or bigger, because Bonifacio Global City is only 240 hectares, where the land that Air Force is occupying is more than 300. So instead of relying on government budget, which we are competing with social services and other requirements of the national government agencies. So we are looking, instead of challenge, we see an opportunity now for private sector to come in and participate in developing these areas for the growth of the airport.
Right. Yeah. So these developments, where are you at now? What's the status now? Is Clark Airport 100%? 80%, because I noticed that obviously you're turning a profit, but there's still capacity for growth. You're saying, you're pointing out that there's a second runway in the plan, but things seem to be going well. But at this moment, where is it right now, the status?
The good thing about Clark Airport is it's already a master plan area. Okay. So we just need to look at the master plan, check the requirements. Okay. So we can easily pull out a page in the master plan to say that at this stage, we need to build this road. At this level of traffic at the airport, we need to build this runway. So we can easily implement those projects. So it's a matter of timing and making sure that we regularly monitor the potential for the area. So in order to implement these projects. So, and in our management talks with our teams, I told them already to prepare an annual infrastructure plan to make sure that the growth, we will not be surprised when the growth of the traffic is already there. Right. So we will be catching up or be reactive. So we already have a plan. Palafox is already also updated the commercial land and master plan it. So we already got proposals also to develop these lands. So it's a matter now of evaluating these proposals.
Right. Well, I noticed also that Lipad has its master plan and SIAC has its master plan. Can you talk about how they integrate? Where does SIAC's responsibility stop in the master plan?
Out of the 2,300 hectares of the Clark Civil Aviation Complex, that's the total area under SIAC. Around 700 hectares was entrusted under the concession agreement with Lipad. Okay. So that's where their first terminal, that's where the existing terminal right now, the airside, the runway, and the taxiways, and some lands. Okay. But more than 2,000 hectares are still with SIAC. And that's where we asked the master planner, Palafox, to update the planning for the area. And we made sure, even when I was with BCDA before, to align these two plans, not for them to be competing at each other, but to be complementing. Right. So there are businesses that we allow Lipad to focus on, while SIAC lands, this will be made available for the private sector to support the requirements of the airport on the other hand.
Okay, very, very interesting. We'll have to take another quick break. This is SMNI's Business and Politics. We'll be right back.
Kanang inyong mga cellphone, pagbantay mo sa inyong mga isultihan ta na mo sa una. Pornography is a spiritual adultery. Kanang pornography, labaw pa na sa shabu. Maddaot imong uto ka na, labi na kung ikaw niya ka sa kingdom ministry, pahingon taglangit, mo na imong kalaban. Because it will destroy everything that was implanted to you spiritually that will let you go to heaven. Pornography is the number one missile of the enemy that will destroy you and your soul to hell. Ayaw jud mo pagtanaw pornography, babaeng lalaki sa inyo. What is dangerous now with cell phones? You can go into the privacy of your room and look at your cell phone without anyone. Only God knows what are you looking at. And mostly, people go to the dark side of the door going to destruction to hell. And that is pornography. It destroys the mind. It destroys the soul. It destroys your spirit. In the spiritual, you don't have to have a doll in order to become a witch. When you psychologically hurt someone, you are a witch. You know how a witch is hurt spiritually? A cold shoulder, mental abuse, physical abuse is witchcraft. Soul winners are not like that. Soul winners are winning souls through love, peace and joy, meekness, gentleness, goodness, kindness. Whether you are on the first, second, or third level of spiritual growth, we are all participating in the same body. We have a care for everyone in the body. Whether you are part of the feet, which is the lowest of all, whether you are in the hand, or whether what part you are, one to another, there is participation of love. That's why Jesus Christ said, love one another, that the world may know you are my disciples.
Welcome back to SMNI. This is Business and Politics. We're talking to President Bingcang. Jake,
yes, thank you,
of course,
sir.
we can't avoid not talking about Clark because that's where the airport is. And you were quite involved as a senior executive in the development of that entire area. Can you talk about that? What's the vision there? Because there was a time, I think during President Duterte's time, that they wanted to make New Clark City as the alternative government hub, right? But what's the status now?
Yeah, you were referring
what's the direction?
to Executive Order 119 that was issued to make Clark, specifically the area in Clark under BCD, we call it New Clark City,
right,
to be a backup city. So it mandated all government agencies to put up a satellite office in Clark so that if something of a disaster scale happen in Metro Manila, which we hope should not, the government, there's always an office of this national government agency up and present in Clark, giving services to the public.
Right.
So right now, that area has also been master planned. It's around 9,000 hectares, but
under CDC, right?
Under BCDA.
BCDA.
Under it's north of the airport.
I see.
It's on the Tarlac side now.
Okay.
So so it's master plans around 9,000, but only 33,000 hectares is developable. The 6,000 hectares is forest areas, open spaces, greeneries. So it's like because the
you want to have
is
some
like Singapore.
Parks and breathing space.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So right now we already have key government agencies who have signed agreements with us and are already constructing
about 40 or
their
something
facilities.
like that,
Let's start with the schools.
Okay.
UP is constructing their 19th campus in Clark.
Yeah, PUP, I think.
And then we have the Philippine Science High School.
Okay.
We have the National Academy for Sports.
Which is already there.
This is a newly created agency
Sports
under
Academy,
to create grassroots training and development for future national athletes of the country.
Yeah.
And then one of the major locators of that area is the Central Bank, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. They're transferring their entire Quezon City complex, their minting facilities to New Clark City. They will. They are already now at the detailed design. They already finished with their pre-construction activities of surveying, soil investigation, and by the second half of this year, they will start and build their area in a 30-hectare site.
Wow.
I was told their budget is around 30 billion pesos to build. So you could imagine the scale of impact it will create to the area in terms of economic development.
Right.
And we also have the Virology Institute of the Philippines. This is already this was already provided funds by the government. So we see that area as a government center. And then we see CDC as more of a mixed-use area, the 2,100 hectares under CDC, which is a subsidiary of BCDA also.
Yeah.
CDC and SIAC are subsidiaries of BCDA. They are the estate managers of the respective areas.
Okay.
CDC has 2,100, SIAC has 2,300.
Okay.
So SIAC now can focus on mixed use as well and aviation-related businesses.
I see.
So all these developments should complement among each other.
Would it be correct to describe the development as something that would look like BGC? I mean, because that's is that a peg?
Yes. Good thing I was also a part when I entered the government by BCDA in the late 90s. So we are at the planning and early initial stage now. So we are proud of BGC as a good master plan area. But we try to improve further on what was implemented in BGC. Like in BGC or in any other areas of metro, there are no dedicated bike lanes. No.
Yeah.
Right now, bike lanes were just like an afterthought because of the pandemic. People
so it eats into the road.
The roads.
Yeah.
However, in New Clark City and in Clark, there are sufficient areas for bicycle lanes. So
it's integrated from the beginning.
Integrated from the beginning, and then they are safely spaced in between the lanes for cars.
Right.
So now it creates opportunities for less carbon emission, healthier living for people.
Right.
And of course, we want to make sure that these are safe with sufficient trees. So it will also be convenient on the part of the public.
For me, one of the, BGC I think is fine if you live in BGC, but one of the criticisms there is if you try to go into BGC or get out of BGC, that's where you encountered the inconvenience of the traffic. How are you trying to plan it so that it doesn't have that same problem? Are we going to see wider roads in Clark? Because that was another contributing factor to traffic.
Apart from the roads, of course, but sometimes roads will reach its limits and capacity, and it will be also an area for choke points.
Yeah.
The rail projects, these are really the necessary infrastructures to make sure that the long-term requirements of these developments are met. And also we are working closely together with the local government units around Clark.
Okay.
From Capas, Bamban, Mabalacat, Angeles, and Pora. So we're helping them to continuously review their comprehensive land use plan to make sure that the developments around inside Clark
cohesive,
are being considered in their planning of their respective areas, so that it will not be a deterrent on their part for growth inside Clark. So we're working on them to review their comprehensive land use plan, and we're also coordinating with them as well on the estate management services. Now we're talking to them the traffic management, security, and then the likes, the safety. So to make sure that it will be a seamless in and out movement for people going to Clark.
So is there anything new that I think you'd like the Marcos administration or maybe Congress to look at? So it would be smooth sailing for Clark's development?
One of the reasons why big developers, the likes of Ayala, Robinson are not yet inside Clark is because right now all lands inside Clark are under leasehold arrangement.
Okay, 75 years.
Yeah, you cannot sell them.
Yeah.
But in terms of residential requirements, the most important consideration for Filipinos is the ability to buy them, because it can be transferred to next generations. So the biggest accomplishment they can have is home ownership.
Okay.
So we see that limitations right now. So we're working and drafted a bill which is being supported by former President Arroyo, is to convert some areas inside Clark for residential uses.
Ownership.
residential uses. Then it will unlock tremendous value for these lands in order for these developers to come in. But of course, one of the lessons also that we've had with BGC is because it's very... minimum wage earners cannot afford to live inside BGC because it's so expensive. But
you have a plan for that, I think,
but
right?
in Clark, we make sure that the social inclusiveness of the development is present long term.
In fact, I think what you were saying before, and correct me if I'm wrong, that even minimum wage earners can afford to live within these development areas in Clark. Is that right?
Correct. So we partnered with the UK government in coming up with a mixed income housing plan.
Okay.
So there are different typologies where even minimum wage earners can afford to own a piece of unit in that development. Our model is Singapore, because in Singapore you can see that these buildings, they all look the same, but inside those buildings are of different units. Now we don't want to create a class division, socially class divided units. So we work with UK government, and soon that is to be because it was found out to be financially viable, because the bigger units can cross-subsidize the smaller units. So it will be open for PPP arrangement as well.
So that's interesting. What's the status of that bill? Is it in committee now? Is it under draft, or how far along is it?
It was already filed by
Mrs. Arroyo, Deputy Speaker Arroyo.
Deputy Speaker, and supported by several congressmen.
Okay.
So we think a smooth passage of that.
Has there been any consultation?
We already have had meetings with the committee on basis conversion.
Okay.
And they fully supported that bill.
Okay. Is there anything else that's from Congress, maybe passage of that bill? There are many things that we are hearing from Congress, but I think this one merits more attention. Is there anything else that you think maybe SEAC or Clark itself needs to maybe from the national government, any additional policy interventions that you need maybe to make it easier to develop?
Of course, if you look right now in NAIA has reached its pre-pandemic levels in terms of traffic capacity. Their domestic level is more than 120% pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So there's already, again, congestion in NAIA.
Right.
So if the government really would like to support the growth of Clark, they can, of course, we would want to instruct all these airlines to go there, but probably, and just encourage them to look at Clark. And because there's also potential for growth in Clark, owing to the market that it has, the northern and central Luzon. So that part of the national government support to making sure that these airports will receive its fair share of traffic, from their own catchment area. That's one. And of course, we want to make sure that the completion of the railway will be realized in the next few years.
By 2025.
Yes, but that will create really, it's a game changer, and an equalizer. And it's a first world experience we experienced that in Japan, in Europe, a rail experience, even middle income people or ordinary wage earners can both ride that comfortably, those train coaches. So we see that. We hope that it can be completed soon. And also an extension of this railway, again moving northward, to give more opportunity and bring more traffic to Clark.
Right. So all very, very exciting. I think we can talk more about this, but that's the time that we have for today. But before we go, Jake, you want to maybe say some final thoughts or give some final thoughts to our audience?
Well, one of the messages that I've got when we were able to present to the administration, to the cabinet and the first couple at the early stage of their presidency, when we presented BC Day, they see the potential of Clark. Right now, we're working to make sure the infrastructure already there, the hard infrastructure. It's on the soft infrastructure that we would like to focus. The internet connectivity.
Yeah.
We envy those internet speed that we experience abroad, but with our projects that we had with DICT and Facebook and BCDA, we want to make sure that businesses doing operations inside Clark will experience globally fast speed of internet inside Clark. So it's not just about location, people, but also connectivity. And also, the national government through DOTR has tasked us, specifically as the heads of SIAC, to make sure that the requirements of the airport operations are always provided by the national government, which should redound to public convenience and safety. So we are working closely now with the LIPAD to make sure that this mandate of national government should not be sidelined when compared to their other requirements of commercial viability. So the national interest of public safety should always be there. And we want to make sure that also people visiting Clark, not just the areas around Clark, but also the Clark International Airport, will have a sense of pride when they go inside Clark because of the developments that the national governments have all introduced in the past years and will continue to do so in the coming years.
Well, it's exciting to talk to you, and I think even more exciting to work with you and making these plans possible in the future.
We need your support.
And I'd like to thank our viewers watching this program today, those watching the replay as well. I'd like to thank Professor Polo Kibuloy for making this program possible. This has been Business and Politics. I will see you next week.